Stefan. Thank you. Let's talk a few words about safety. So make sure you are all in a safe area. Be aware of all the safety procedures that apply for your specific location, and do not drive while taking part in this webinar. If you drive, stop immediately. Okay, next please. The presentation and the recording will be shared with you after the webinar, and you are welcome to send all your questions by typing them into the chat. And our presenters today are Stefan Meyer, Global Product Manager, Ivan Gorin, Senior Software Developer, and Krzysztof Drzyczyk, Technical Product Manager. So I know you're all eager to hear about the news, so let me present our first speaker, Stefan Meyer. Over to you, Stefan.
Thank you, Marita, for this kind introduction, and welcome also from my side to this webinar about IET and ITT 600. So the agenda we have today is, first we're going to have a look at the latest hotfix release for ITT 600 SA Explorer. Then we will look into Synthesizer. You'll see there a quick demo from Krzysztof. And then at the end, we will have a look into the latest features of IET 600, feature pack 1 of release 5.4, with some slides, and then also there a demo from Ivan to show you what has been added. So looking at SA Explorer, as you see on the title, it is a hotfix release. So hotfix release means there are no new real features included in this release. The main motivation that we did this hotfix release were these two changes and improvements which are listed here. The need to update this NPCAP component, and also a new version of the ISS stack, which we updated. At the same time, a few bug fixes were also included. So fixing issues which have been either reported from you, the users, from SVC, or our internal R&D testing. So the two changes or improvements, both are related in some aspects to security. As I said, NPCAP, we replaced former WinPCAP, some release, or last release actually already, with NPCAP. Now it happens that there is also a newer version of NPCAP. Now under the new Hitachi Energy IS rules, it's mandatory, or it's not allowed, that users have any software installed on the machines which are out of maintenance. Exactly this happened with this NPCAP version 1.5, so we had to replace with the latest version. To fulfill these obligations, not bringing actually further value to you, but it's of course important that we have a safe environment. On the ISS stack, there in the recent cybersecurity testing, their vulnerability was found on the version which we used in the previous ITT 600 Explorer and Synthesizer. So therefore, this has been updated to the latest version. So that's already it about the SA Explorer. So then on the Synthesizer side, also here it was not a huge release, even though quite many things are included, in particular also in terms of bug fixes. When we look at the new and enhanced features here, there was also driven by this migration to the new Hitachi Energy IT environment of our personal computers. The users, they have different rights on the computers. So what we included here is that there is an option that you can choose whether Synthesizer launches with administrator rights or elevated rights. We need that in Synthesizer for two purposes. One is the setting of IP addresses if you have simulation where you want to change IP addresses, and the other one is if you are using the OPC server in ITTSA Synthesizer. So how that looks like now, Krzysztof will present right now. Demonstrate.
Yes, let me show my screen. Okay, how you can see it.
Yes.
Yes, as Stefan mentioned, the release was focused mainly on the security updates and the bug fixes. One of the bug fixes was related to the installer, both in SymT and Explorer, related to the redistributables, C++, which is the redistributables package. If there were a newer version already installed, the installer did not proceed and there was need to uninstall the higher version. The main change was related to the changes to the Hitachi Energy IT infrastructure. So we want to allow user to choose if he wants to start ITT with admin or without the admin rights. By default, installer creates the shortcut with additional argument. In the properties, you can see that there is the switch -1 as admin, and it causes the ITT to run with elevated privileges. And also the top bar, you can see the indicator that it's run with the administrator rights. So if we can close it, we can create a new shortcut. And if I remove the switch, then SymT is starting without additional rights. The elevation is required mostly for changing the IP addresses on the network interface. Also, it depends if ITT is configured to manage the IP addresses, which can be changed in the tools menu in the options on the simulation tab. So we can pre-configure the network with IP addresses on the network interface, or we can allow SymT to manage this for us. So if I load some profile and if I wanted to simulate some ID, I will receive a system confirmation dialog if I allow the application to change the network interface IP address. Most probably the Teams will not show it, but here right now, yeah, I have the confirmation dialog allow to change the IP address. Other places where the elevation is required is when starting the OPC server. Also, with this release, we moved the configuration file which is generated when we start the server to the program data folder instead of keeping it in the installation folder. Yeah, because of the if ITT is run without elevation, we cannot change or modify the files in the installation folder. Another place might be when we use scripting and we will use some advanced functionality which will require the elevation. So thank you, and come back to you, Stefan.
Yes, thank you, Christoph, for this short demo. I would like to remind you that if you have any questions, please put them in the chat window. And then I would like to launch a few questions we have from our side in form of 3 polls around ITTSA synthesizer. The first one, which you should get on your screens now, is around the synthesizer's OPC UI server, which allows you to interact with other applications from or with synthesizer to automate testing tasks or similar things. I would like to ask you how often you use this OPC feature. Is it daily or weekly, which means probably about every time you use SymT, or is it less, or is it actually never? So I kindly ask you now in the next minute to choose any of the options here. Okay, thank you for your responses. I think you can still continue to respond if you haven't done it yet. So we see it is similarly as in the morning session. It is not used too often, but about half of the audience is using it at least from time to time. Then the second similar question about again about usage, but this time about the scripting interface. You get on your screen now. So we have the scripting interface, which you also have improved quite a bit in the last release. So here, of course, the question again, how often do you use it? Again, daily, weekly. So again, is it about every time you use a synthesizer, or is it more rarely, which means monthly or yearly, or as again, that's the last option. Don't you use it at all? So again, about 1 minute to answer. Okay, so thank you again for your responses. We see here about 2/3 of the people here in the call are using at least from time to time the scripting functions, and about 1/4 or so isn't using it at all. We stay on the topic about scripting also for the next question. It's the last one for now. Here we would like to understand a bit better what maybe additional or what functions would you expect from this scripting interface. So if you're an experienced user, you might have functions which you're missing. If you're not so experienced, just put anything here which you think should be there that would help you in your testing activities in using the scripts. So again, about 1 minute, just type any keyword which comes into your mind. Once you see them on the screen, you can also like individual ones if you think, well, yes, that's a feature which you actually as well would like to use. Of course, you can also put in multiple keywords. Okay, yeah, I would say you can still type in also during the rest of this session here if you have any further ideas throughout the presentation. We see here it's about examples, demo applications are the ones which are mostly mentioned. Yeah, might be something which we can improve on to extend the sample scripts which are actually part of the ITT installation, to see there that we can provide in addition to make your life a bit easier. Okay, good. Then on the presentation, I would like now to continue with the IET 600, giving you here a couple of slides with overview of what has been done, in particular focusing on the newer aspects. And then afterwards, Ivan will give you a demonstration of the new features, but also a lot about improvements and bugs which have been corrected. So if you look also here up to onto the release note, we see the number of entries. So we have 3 new or enhanced features. We have 16 improvements and 14 fixes. On the right side is a screenshot from the externals version release note. So you see there on the new and enhanced feature, on the external release note, only one is listed. About the guided creation for 6150 references when using the SUSE 600 6150 server. Two more things are also there. One is not listed because it's not yet used. It's the first one here about the client configuration of or conversion of projects that will use in the future the new ISS client in MicroSCADA. I will give you some more details about that later on. And then the other point, which is just about the expert mode, where we have now the possibility to include access points in the rule definitions. On a few notes about these features, starting with the SUSE 600 feature here. Already since SUSE 600 10.1, MicroSCADA provides the 6150 server feature to have 6150 communication to a network control centers. That follows the technical report 6150 90-2, or then the coming standard 80-6, where also different versions of this 6150 connection are described. SUSE 600 uses this so-called indirect access. Indirect means we have the 6150 or basically any other communication to the IEDs to our proxy gateway, so the SUSE 600 here, and then 6150 communication to the network control center up here. In between, there's a process data image, so our process database. So we have only an indirect access from the process through the database to the network control center. If we look a bit what SUSE 600 provides, we see that over here we can have several 6150 server instances. Each server instance basically corresponds to one NCC connection. Each one can have its own data model, can even have the same data model in different ways, going to different NCCs. Of course, there can also be different clients or multiple clients connected to the same or multiple servers. And there can be up to 8 of these servers or up to 8 NCCs. That's the limit what MicroSCADA can do. And then the configuration, as you already know, is done using IT600 already since that feature is available. More details about the 6150 implementation for that server you can also find in the MicroSCADA manual, which is also linked here. If you have a look at the engineering workflow, that's how it is since, I'm not sure now feature pack how much of version 5.3 of IT600. So since the feature is available to have this server in MicroSCADA, it works like this, that you can create 6150 references for this data which you want to transfer to the NCC. By default, if something is there, the 6150 reference is copied from the mapped to entry from the source data. It's also possible to create references manually or modify them manually. Then after this, the server gate or the gateway data model is generated. So with the report control blocks datasets, so you can do that manually or automatically. And of course, also it's possible to update these data models if, for example, you have changes on the source data. Then these changes also need to be reflected in the data model towards the NCC. Now the change in this version circles around this point here, that where it was before you had to type in like a text string these changed references manually. There is now a dialog available which simplifies this work quite a bit. And the dialog I will skip now on the slides because Ivan will present it afterwards. Second feature which I would like to mention here again focuses on SUSE 600. In SUSE 600 in release 10.5, which is scheduled for November this year, there will be a new 6150 client. So today we have this 6150 client OPC server implementation. In addition, or instead of, we will get the ISS client included, so based on our own 6150 stack. Along with this, MicroSCADA will then also support edition 2.1 of 6150. Already in earlier releases of IET, we have added the possibility that you can engineer the data points for this new 650 client. What was missing so far, and what is important to really make use of this new function in MicroStrader is that you can convert existing projects or existing templates from using the old OPC client to use the new ISS client. So this is what has been added now. To really do that and really to enable you to basically use existing projects, be it a template, be it a similar project from an existing customer, that you can use the new ISS client in MicroStrader. And to be noted maybe is that this conversion in IET is only in one direction, so you can convert from old to new, from OPC to ISS. There is no way back. That's also why before the conversion, IET creates a backup of your configuration in case you would have to go back and work with the old setup. Ivan will show here quite a bit on how that looks like and how it works. Then the last feature I would like to mention here is what has been changed on the rules. It appears here as a small change, but I think it's an important one, in particular if we look into digital substations, look into the application of IEDs with, in our case, up to 6 access points. So far it was required that you created or described a rule for individual access points, even though the rule would have been the same, you had to duplicate the rule. So now it's different. You can give a list of access points into the rules, and then the rule correspondingly will create data sets or goose control blocks for the required access points automatically. So here also again simplifying a bit the management of the goose rules. Good, and then one more thing you might see then with this version of IET with Featurepack 1, we have basically rebranded it. We have removed all the ABB logos, replaced with Hitachi. Also the program file folder. If you look into the start menu, you see now that so far IET and Synthesizer are part of the Hitachi folder. ITT Explorer will follow this autumn then. Also the installation file folder is now not anymore ABB, it's Hitachi. And then the last slide from my side is about the license request utility. It's again related to this migration to the new Hitachi Energy IT environment. The old utility was trying to gather information which was not anymore available, which led to error messages when trying to collect data for a license. Now we have also in IET 600 added the latest request utility. So if you need to request for a license, that should now run smoothly also on the new IT environment. Good. With this, I would like to hand over to Ivan for the demonstration part.
Thank you, Stefan. Let me share my screen. This one. So I would like to start from a new dialog to construct a 61850 reference for NCC. Here we have this column in NCC data editor, and some values are here because they are taken from map2 value, which you can find in the HMI data editor. And for other objects like group alarms, we need to construct this value from scratch. So when we double click on SL, a new dialog, this dialog opens, and we can actually select the source ID, logical device, also a namespace for which we would like to construct it. We can put a prefix and instance indication in case it's available, and a functional constraint to filter data attributes. For example, we have for some data objects this plus at the end of a name. It means that we should provide an indication number. And after we are done, we can press update, and this reference is created now. If we open this dialog one more time, and this reference is, if this reference is valid, it appropriate elements will be already pre-selected in that dialog. I can show you maybe some existing reference, for example, this one, which has all elements in this dialog. So we have a prefix, instance, and we should provide an indication for that. And depending on what functional constraint is selected, we filter this data object. So now we cannot select anything. And for example, now we can select some of the values from the list. Also, this validation will happen now before we generate gateway data model. In the previous version of IAD, it was not possible to do a consistency check for the references before generation. So after we already have a new server, all these errors appeared in application output or in the log file. Okay, the next feature which I would like to show is the extension of GCB rules. For that, I need to select that ID. And as you can see, this ID has 2 access points, and in GCB rules, for user-defined GCB rule, we can provide now a list of access point, not only one. And if possible, these data sets will be generated according to these values provided here. And let's go, for example, to GCB data, generate GCBs. As you can see, in this case, 2 data sets are generated with the different control blocks, which will be sent from different access points as provided in GCB rules. Okay, the next part of improvements is connected to SCL version, and we had several projects, let's say, which were inconsistent in a way that a project version is, for example, a 2007B, which is edition 2, and inside that project we had some IDs of version 2007B4, for example, which is edition 2.1. And now when we open such a project, we analyze all IDs, what versions are there, and if needed, we automatically will set a project version to the highest between that IDs inside. Also, there was a requirement that IAD of edition 2 must have several attributes inside IAD element in the SC, for example, IAD file. I already exported one of IADs from that project, and here in the text editor, as you can see, we automatically set if these values are not there, we before export set original SCL version, revision, and release if it is available. So in this particular IAD, we have only version and revision. Okay. Also, a small improvement in export of mixed system SCD files dialog. In the previous release, we introduced that option to export SCD file with feature of upgrade all elements to be compatible with edition 2. In this case, edition 2, because a project is of edition 2. And this information you can see in the tooltip. But when we, for example, go and change a project version to edition 2.1, in this export dialog, we have updated this tooltip to show proper information to what version elements will be upgraded to. because before it was only edition 2 and was not clear really what rules would apply. Okay. Also, in the voltage level, we added 2 attributes which were missing before. It's a nominal frequency and the number of phases. Now you can set these attributes and they will be exported together with in SCL file together with voltage level element. Now let me open or select another IEDs to show you another improvement of IN attribute recalculation, let's say. So the first IED will be T1 Q01 KC1, that one. And this IED has 2 access points, S1 and S2, which are added to different subnetworks, which is A1WF2, and the second one is A1WF3. And here in the RCB clients editor, we can see that we configured one client to one of datasets from that IED. And for example, we can remove this client connection. And as you can see, this access point is cleared. It is empty now. But when we create a client connection, there is S1 access point set because this client NCC3 is in the same subnetwork with S1 access point of that IED. And in the HMI data editor, we have signals which are included to that dataset, and these signals got IN attribute configured by IN rule, and the first variable is S10, which stands for a subnetwork. Now we have AA1WF2, which is a subnetwork of access point S1. But for example, now we want to change this and let's say set this dataset with that signals to another NCC with another subnetwork, with S2 subnetwork. And now the improvement is that we automatically recalculate IN depending on IN rule and a new subnetwork. Now it's A1WF3, which is correct. Before in the previous version, it was all time a subnetwork of S1 access point because it was taken depending on a server, which is on S1 access point, and S2 is a server at. And to fix that before, you would need to just replace a variable with the hard-coded value of a subnetwork name. Now it's not needed. It will be recalculated and updated automatically. Also here in HMI data editor, we have our old option to scroll to column, but now this list of columns is not static, which consists on all columns in this editor, all possible columns, but we show here only visible columns. For example, we have mapped to. We can go to that column, which is here. And for example, now we would like in the column chooser to hide this column. And now in this scroll to column list, we cannot find mapped to. It disappeared because it is not relevant to this configuration of a grid in this editor. Okay, the next thing is the possibility to update inputs depending on a control block name. Let me select another IDs, which is Q01 KF1, this one. And this ID receives some data from ID Q06 KF1, this one. We can see it in GCP client editor. There were some client connections created. And this client ID has a source a reference to a source control block, which is which ends with GCBB, because this value is here in GCB data, GCBB. And now what we want to do, we want to just rename this control block. And now we automatically check what clients this GCB has and update appropriate inputs on client side. Before it was not possible, and you would need to, after the name of a source control block, just to recreate a client connection to get the proper values here, to get updated values here. Now it's done automatically. And also about control block names, let's go and put a value which was before. Now we made, according to standard, we made this GCB name case sensitive. It means that you can rename another control block to GCBB, for example, with a small b, and the tool will accept this name. Before it was not possible, and there was an error, as for example here, that there is already GCB with that name. Now case sensitive values are accepted here. Okay, now let me open another ID, which is Q01 KC1. This one. And in the HMI data editor, we improved a little bit consistency check and also updated a description of a warning for object bit address. For example, if I put here object address 0, but object bit is not 16, which should be, and now it's not only error message that bit address is invalid, but it also shows us what value is required here. Another case can be that, for example, if object address has some value, but object bit is, for example, 16, we have another error that object bit must be between 0 and 15. Okay, the next thing is connected to some incompatible clients in the sampled values editor, and also the same logic applies in the GCP clients editor. If I, for example, select that ID and open sampled values client editor, here you can see that some of client columns has a dark gray background, and the client connection is created, but we cannot modify it. This means that in this case, this client ID somehow has input which references to this source control block. And now we show this client connection with the dark gray background, and actually we can, by a context menu, remove this incompatible client. It can happen in different situations. In my case, I created a client connection because previously in this client ID I had configured a service client services sampled values. And after creation of a client connection, I just removed this service. And now this connection is not compatible. I can remove it. And when we next time go to that editor with that IED selected, we will not see that incompatible client IED. And for that client, we also removed that input. Okay, now let me show you a new feature of a conversion of existing OPC to ISS. Here, for example, we have HMIs. We have several OPC under each HMI, and now we can convert OPC server to ISS client by clicking on the context menu item. We can do it for the individual OPC. We can do it for HMI, which will convert all OPCs inside, or we can do it for HMI's preview item, which in this case convert all OPC servers in the project. And let me, for example, to convert only one OPC. When we press it before a conversion dialog, we'll proceed with a conversion, and the backup of a project will be created. But here, a list of OPC servers which will be converted, and in this list we see not only one OPC for which we want to convert, but some other OPCs. This is correct because another OPCs are related to that OPC. It means that we not only convert OPC itself, but we also convert a source data which is sent to that OPC. I will show you this source data later after a conversion. And the problem is that, for example, there is some source IED which sends some signals to that OPC which we would like to convert, but also this source IED sends the same signals to some other OPC. So we also must convert that other OPC, because after a conversion, a project will be inconsistent because a source signals which will be converted to be compatible, to be sent to ISS, and so on, so on. So we also analyze what signals are sent to second OPC, and maybe some other signals are sent to some other OPCs, and so on, so on. So at the end, we receive a list of all related OPCs which must be converted together with that one. Let's press OK. It takes some time to convert, depending on how many OPCs and how many source data we want to convert. And now you can see that OPC is removed from that tree view. And if we go to this HMI, which is KF21, this one, we can see that there is no longer OPC1 access point, and there is no this standalone OPC IED. It is substituted by ISC1 access point with the appropriate data template. And not only access point is substituted, but we also store all relevant data which was configured to that OPC access point. For subnet IP configuration. And also, when we go to RCP client editor, here we can see these new access points with exactly the same client connections which were before with the OPC access point. And also about the source data, we have a column application which indicates us what a configuration this signal has, and now it's ISC 61850 via ISS. And also in this list we have some signals which are 61850 via OPC, because we still have some OPC servers in the project, so probably these signals are sent to that OPC servers. And the main difference between these two signals is that in IN rule or in IN attribute, we substitute dot by slash. And also while doing it, we updated another attributes which are needed for ISS. For example, we set a new directive text object address, which is 0 for ISS, and so on, so on. Okay, this is it about conversion. And the last two small improvements I would like to show is connected to a VLAN calculation feature, which was introduced in the previous release. Let me open IID inside the substation tree. It should be T1, T01, for example, KC1. In VLAN data editor, I already did some calculation of VLAN, and I got VLAN IDs and required egress or ingress and other data. But now I want to copy this ID and paste it to the same bay. New name will be KC3. And now what we did after in this new ID, we removed all VLAN configuration which was done for the IED which we copied, because it is not relevant to that IED. It is relevant only to that IED. So if you want to get values here, you need to trigger VLAN calculation one more time. And also in the communication configuration editor, we have here 3 sub-editors. New is support VLANs, which we introduced last, but now we corrected one bug which was connected to synchronization of election visitors and the diagram itself. For example, we select some IED here, and now this IED is selected in other sub-editors. If we select something here, it is also selected automatically in 2 other ones. And yes, and basically this is it from demo site, and the rest of improvements and bug fixes you can find in release notes and the user manual. Thank you, and Stefan, back to you.
Thank you, Ivan. Thanks a lot for this demo of the new or improved points. Before we get to your questions, if there are any, I would like to again launch 2 polls, this time around IET 600. The first one is exactly about this automatic VLAN calculation, which has been introduced in the last release of IET 600. So we would like to get some feedback from your side, whether you have already used it, this calculation, and how you perceived it. Was it very useful, somewhat useful, not useful, or whether you haven't used it at all yet? So I kindly ask you here to select your answer. So I give you a bit more time to answer. Okay, so thank you for the answers. Now I can't see them anymore. Okay. So we see about somewhat half of you have used it so far. Somebody said it's not useful. We might get in touch then to see what how we can maybe also improve there. Okay, thanks a lot. Then I close this question and we'll launch the second one now. That's a bit more generic one. We have every now and then, or always again, discussions with utilities. You can see the poll. Oh, I can see it now as well. With utilities that are looking into possibilities to optimize their project execution from specification down to maintenance and so on. And in that context, also then discussions about the features we should provide in our tools. So therefore, the three questions: how you see it from your customer contacts. Is it like the first answer says, that the current workflow with our bottom-up ID and system engineering approach is okay? Or do you have customers that plan to request a top-down engineering approach, starting basically from SSD or ISD, so substation specification description, or IED specification description files, which they provide? Or do you even have customers that already provide these SSD files for you to do the engineering? You can also submit here more than, or you can also select here more than one answer if this is not unique for all of your customers. Okay, I give you again 20 more seconds to answer here. Okay, thank you. Yeah, the responses are similar to the previous sessions, that for most of us the current workflow still works, but we see here also from your responses trends that there are movements that customers would like to have better control on a standardized workflow to the specification of their projects. Okay, thanks a lot for these replies. Now we have 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes we can use for any questions you might have. I see there is no question so far in the chat.
No, they are all shy.
I think you can't speak up, so you have to put it in the chat.
Or all is clear.
But if there are no questions, then close a bit earlier. That's okay. Then I thank you, Christoph and Ivan, for the demos and also for the